Hey, welcome to the Empowered and Free podcast. My name is Erin Kimbrell, and I'm a counselor, certified life coach, breathwork coach, and small town mom of two. I know firsthand what it feels like to live with high functioning anxiety. For most of my life, I had so much mental mess, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking, constant worrying, and never feeling good enough. On my decade-long journey to feeling better, I've learned how to take back my life from high-functioning anxiety and helped others to do the same through my coaching and breathwork programs. Now I want to share everything I know with you. This podcast will help you feel empowered over your high-functioning anxiety and free to finally live the life of your dreams. Now, grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and dive into the episode. I'm Erin Kimbrell, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Empowered and Free podcast. Today, we're talking all about you feeling anxious about the next time you're going to be anxious. Man, this was literally my reality every single day. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to share a little story time with you. And then I'm all about what do you do instead? So I'm going to teach you the things that you can do to help yourself not feel this way. Now, before we start, I just have to be honest and say I've had way too much caffeine already this morning. Normally, I don't do caffeine in the morning, but my sister has a Nespresso machine. And this is like the fanciest coffee I feel like you can get. Probably not, but to me, it feels fancy because I'm over here used to Keurig coffee. Okay, I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but it's true. So I've had way too much caffeine. I normally drink, if you've been here a minute, you know that I love Everyday Dose, which is my coffee replacement. It is great if you have anxiety. It also has a lot of other health benefits too. It doesn't hurt my stomach. It has L-theanine, which is really calming for the body. So highly recommend that and not real coffee if you're trying to still get a little bit of caffeine, but not way too much. As a reminder, I have a code if you want to check it out. My code is my name, Erin Kimbrell. Message me any questions you have. I'm happy to talk coffee replacements because I've tried, I feel like, almost every single one out there. And this is a reminder why, because caffeine and me are not BFFs, especially first thing in the morning. Okay, let's get into the episode. So again, we're going to talk today about, are you anxious about the next time you'll be anxious? We're going to start with a little story time. So years ago, when I was still struggling with my anxiety, which really wasn't that long ago in the span of time, I would say this is probably 4-ish years ago. Okay. Every single day when I woke up in an anxious state. There's no other way to say that. My body would just be buzzing, vibrating from the inside out. I had a constant uneasy feeling, like something bad is going to happen. I need to be kind of checking over my shoulder. What's going to happen today? What do I need to be looking out for? Just that uneasiness that something is going to be wrong. I also was super jumpy. So I was not here for a jump scare, but anything could make me feel like that. In fact, I even feel a little bit like that today with all of this caffeine in my system that my body is not used to. Just that jumpy, and kind of feeling on edge all the time. Then again, I would have a million thoughts racing through my mind before my eyes even opened up, just thinking about everything I had to do for the day, thinking about everything I was worried about, all the stuff that I fell behind on, maybe all the ways that I was failing in life, just really negative thoughts going, a lot of worry thoughts going. I'd end up in a worry spiral and kind of thinking about the worst possible things that could happen for the day. It was almost like I was in this sped up state. I wanted to go fast. My body felt like that because of that buzzing and antsy and crawl out of your skin kind of energy. But also my body was super tired because I was like that all the time. My body was amped up all the time. And so really what my body needed was to go slow and to rest and to take breaks. But I didn't really understand how to do that. So I was in this perpetual state of feeling amped up all the time with anxiety and also completely exhausted because of the anxiety. So with all that being said, can you relate? Is that a hard relate to you? It really is crazy to think about how long I lived that way, which is really as far back as I can remember, ever since I was a little kid. And maybe you have different anxiety symptoms than I have. Maybe yours show up in different ways in your body. We talk about all different types of anxiety symptoms, the 3 categories, what they are, a whole anxiety symptoms checklist. So you can go through and notice what your symptoms are. Because if you would have asked me what my anxiety symptoms are, I wouldn't have even known really where to start. That was just my normal. I felt like that all the time. And I never took the time to really pause and notice, what am I actually feeling? Where do I feel that in my body? So if you need to start somewhere, I highly recommend you start in Anxiety 101. It is going to be your fast track to feel less anxious. And the thing that I wish I would have had back then, that's exactly why I created it. For people like me who are struggling and for people like you who are currently feeling the same way. So like I shared, that was my everyday, always anxious. But if there was ever a day, a miracle day that came along that I didn't feel like that I woke up and maybe I did feel oh, I can relax for a minute. I don't have to immediately jump out of bed and get going. Actually, maybe I feel at peace. This might have been a day on vacation or something, right? Or when I was on a little break or a weekend or something. And maybe I thought, okay, I do feel a little bit calmer. This is cool, right? Then there was that immediate thought of when am I going to feel anxious again? I know it's coming. When is it coming? It was that quick realization that I feel better, but I know this isn't going to last long. And I know this is something that you feel too, because I hear this all the time from clients. Things are going well. When is this ship going to sink? When am I going to tank? When is something going to happen and I'm going to feel anxious again? And I want to kind of break down why you're feeling that way. First of all, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Okay. This is just another piece of that anxiety puzzle coming into play. Your brain is trying to help you stay hyper vigilant. I talk all about the brain's role in anxiety inside of Anxiety 101, but the brain is there to look out for you, right? So the brain is kind of scanning the environment hey, we feel good today. When is the bad thing coming? Because your brain is just trying to see what's ahead. If your brain can see what's coming, you can be prepared, right? And the goal of the brain is to keep you safe, is to keep you protected, is to help you feel prepared. So what your brain is doing when you feel like it's that anxious brain, your brain is actually just trying to predict what's going to happen in an effort to control the future, to control how you prepare, and to control the outcome. Okay. Control feels really safe. What I hear from most of you women I speak with all the time who are struggling with anxiety is that uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen. These are things that create a ton of anxiety, and that's super normal. And so on the flip side of that, we can see how feeling in control, knowing what's going to happen, feels really good. It feels calming. It feels oh, we're safe, right? And so on those days when you wake up and maybe you don't feel anxious and then you think about it, that's just your brain looking out for you, trying to help you prepare so that you'll be okay. So now that we can understand that, that's a good foundation to kind of build this on. So we're going to talk about what not to do, things that kind of create more anxiety for us, and what to do instead. Let's start with a what not to do. On those days, and this is in general, this is whether you wake up feeling anxious or whether you don't. What we don't want to do is be intimidated by that anxiety, be scared, be overwhelmed, be worried about the next time you're going to be anxious. I used to say all the time, I was anxious about being anxious, which is such a mind trip. What? But when we do that, it just causes more of that fear of the anxiety and anticipation of when is it coming. It keeps you in that constant state of hyper awareness, looking out for signs that your anxiety is there. And so what I mean by this is anxiety symptoms that you experience. If you wake up and you think, oh my gosh, I feel good today, then you're going to constantly be looking out for any sign that you don't feel good, any of your anxiety symptoms. And again, if you need help with your anxiety symptoms, check out Anxiety 101. I make it super simple to understand. My goal is to not be overwhelming, but to help you understand anxiety so that you can feel better faster. And I know maybe it doesn't quite make sense what I'm saying yet for you to be don't be scared of your anxiety. But the very first step that I teach is how to know that you're not going to feel anxious anymore. And so what this does is kind of gives you some of that control back, because again, we said control because needing to feel in control is absolutely a symptom of anxiety. And maybe what I'm saying doesn't quite make a lot of sense yet. That's okay. This is just something I want you to start working on, is not feeling intimidated or scared or anxious about being anxious. And again, I'm going to teach you the solution in just a minute. So hold tight. We're just running through things that we don't want to do, things that almost make that anxiety worse. All right. So the second thing we don't want to do is create more anxiety for ourselves. And here's my example. I could be having a chill day. I could actually be feeling good. And then I could just think the word anxiety. I could say it in my mind and boom, I immediately felt anxious. Even if the thought was, why am I not anxious today? I still knew it was coming. I knew what it felt like. And immediately my body remembered. Now, this is part of the anxiety cycle. I talk again about this inside of Anxiety 101 so that you can start to break down what that anxiety cycle is for you. But a big part of that is that our thoughts affect the way we feel. So as soon as I had the thought about anxiety, my body felt anxious. That was just our normal. That was the common. That was the anxiety cycle that I was in. So it was like I was creating that anxiety, like I was bringing it on myself because I was feeling good. And then I immediately was like, oh, can't feel good. Got to feel anxious again. And I remember back in the day trying to work through that of no, wait, I'm not anxious. I don't need to feel this way. And so maybe I'd be feeling good. Then a little bit later, whenever I was feeling anxious, I'd be like, oh, here it is. I knew it was coming, almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy, which is crazy because I had created that anxious feeling inside of my body. I brought anxiety into my situation when I wasn't feeling anxious. Now, let me pump the brakes. I'm not saying you're causing your anxiety, you're creating your anxiety, or anxiety is your fault. Not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying you're caught in this anxiety cycle. And what does the cycle do? It repeats over and over and over. So I want you to be able to break that anxiety cycle so that you're not creating more anxiety in your life when there is none. And so that you're not in that constant state of fear of when the anxiety is coming. So those are a couple of recommendations of what not to do. Let's now talk about what to do instead. If you want to stop feeling anxious about the next time you'll be anxious, here's what you need to do, okay? First of all, you need to learn what anxiety truly is. I talked about this in episode 14 of the podcast, so go check it out if you haven't listened yet, or join us inside of Anxiety 101 because I go even deeper into what anxiety really is. I break it down in 3 different ways, and I ask you some questions in there so that you can get insightful with yourself and really learn, how does this show up for you? Because that's going to be key. Awareness, knowing yourself, figuring this out, that's going to be how you make long-lasting change. Okay. You can listen to me all day and you can understand, which is amazing, right? I'm glad you're here, but you got to apply it to your life. You got to take action so that you can actually feel better. Okay. So inside of Anxiety 101, I break down how anxiety is actually 3 things. Okay. It is your protector. It is a messenger that something is wrong, and it's your internal alarm system. So when you learn what anxiety really is, it's just those things, right? It's not some big scary thing to be avoided, something to live in constant fear of, something that you're stuck with forever, something that's genetic, something that's a chemical imbalance, not those things, right? Anxiety is just your protector. It's a messenger that something's wrong, and it's your internal alarm. When you learn those things, you're like, oh, okay, I can see that. Makes sense. And what you learn to do, a big, big thing I teach you is how to listen to the anxiety. We're not going to avoid it. We're not going to pretend it's not there. We're not going to lose our mind that we actually feel that way. We're going to tune in. We're going to listen. So let's go back to that alarm system example. Since anxiety is just our internal alarm system letting us know that something's wrong, think about your house alarm. If your house alarm all of a sudden started going off, what would you do? Would you ignore it? Would you try to avoid it? Would you run away from your house and pretend it wasn't going off? What would you do? You would first be like, I wonder why my alarm's going off. Is something really wrong? So you'd figure that out. Then you would go over to that keypad or use your app on your phone. You would put in the code and your alarm system would turn off. That's exactly what I want to teach you. Your alarm system, your anxiety alarm system is constantly trying to let you know that something is wrong. And I just want to teach you the code. I want to teach you how to turn off that alarm system and then figure out why it's going off in the first place. I teach you to get to the root of your anxiety so you can heal it so that it's not going off all the time. And then I teach you the tools to use so that when it does go off, how you can use that code to calm down your body and your mind. Okay. So that's the first step is you're going to learn what anxiety truly is. Next, you're going to get really comfortable with your anxiety, which I know sounds crazy. You're like, okay, I'm tuning you off. Like, okay, I'm tuning you out. Like, how can I even get comfortable with my anxiety? It feels awful. Believe me, I know it feels awful. And why I'm saying get comfortable with it is because you can learn to listen. What is anxiety saying? Like, what is it trying to tell you? What are you scared of? And then why are you scared of that thing? Again, let me pause and say, I think of Erin, think of me 4 or 5 years ago. If I would have heard that, I would have been like, how can I even? Like, I'm so amped up. How can I pause for a minute and notice what my thoughts are saying and how I feel in my body? And like, I might not have known how to do that yet. That's super common, very normal. Again, that's why I created ways to help you, right? That's why Anxiety 101 is there, because this is a great place for you to start. Maybe you've already done some work around your anxiety. Maybe you've seen a therapist or a psychiatrist, but you still feel like anxiety is like your normal thing, your normal daily life, just like mine was at the beginning of this episode. I shared some of my story with you. That just tells me that you're missing a few pieces of the puzzle. And that's okay, because I cover it all inside of Anxiety 101. So, and that's okay, right? I didn't know these things either. Even when I went to school to become a counselor, even when I was going to therapy for myself, like I wasn't taught these things. And so you just haven't learned these things. That's why I cover it all and teach you everything inside of Anxiety 101. So if you're kind of side-eyeing me, rolling your eyes at me at this advice, then I encourage you to just get curious on, are you ready to take that step? Are you ready to change? Maybe not. That's okay too. We're all at different points in our journey, but I want to remind you that if you've tried things that haven't worked, it might be time to try something different. And listening to your anxiety could be that step for you. So we covered a couple things that you can do instead. Learn what anxiety truly is and listen to that anxiety. The third tip that I want to share with you here that you can do to help yourself feel less anxious is learn how to break that anxiety cycle. I talked a little bit earlier about the anxiety cycle, but again, what this is just that cycle in our brain that's been created where we feel anxious all the time and we don't know how to stop feeling that way. The really cool thing is that our brain is a muscle. Our brain can change anytime. So what we get to do is just teach our brain a new way of thinking. You can break the old pattern and create that new pattern. That is going to be such a huge step for you. So I can't wait for you to do that. Again, I help you do all that and more inside of Anxiety 101, which is your fast track to feeling less anxious. You can feel better in as little as 2 hours. If you want to sit and binge the content, that's how long it would take you, right? But the content is also created in a way that you can take it piece by piece, step by step. I do not want you to feel overwhelmed. My goal is that this is simple and easy to use, not full of a lot of fluff. Like I want you taking action. I want you taking those steps to feeling better. And the cool thing is, if you like to listen to me like this, like on the podcast, that's exactly the kind of format it is. You have audio lessons that you can listen to, and you also have a 94-page workbook because, again, it's not just about me talking at you or to you. It's about you doing the work in your own life. So let's do some work in the workbook. I'll drop the link below for Anxiety 101 so you can check it out, see if it's right for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, as always, because, my friend, I want you to feel less anxious. And the quickest way for me to help you is through Anxiety 101. So let's review what we talked about today. We talked about how to stop feeling anxious about the next time you're going to be anxious. What you're not going to do is be scared or intimidated or constantly live in fear of your anxiety. And you're not going to create more of that anxiety in your life by basically bringing in anxiety in a moment where you feel good. Okay. What you're going to do instead is learn what anxiety really is, learn to listen to anxiety, and learn how to break that anxiety cycle. I hope today's episode was super helpful for you. Again, I try to create everything that I wish I would have had back in the day and things that I know will help you feel better too. So let's take away that fear of anxiety and let's actually start making some moves in your life so that you can feel calm, peaceful, happy, energetic, and like that version of you that you actually want to be without the anxiety. Okay, she's in there. I know it. I can't wait to see her. All right, friends, thanks for listening today, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, guys. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You don't know how much it means to me. If you'd like more behind the scenes content, inspiration, and daily reminders that encourage and uplift you, follow me on Instagram at Hey Erin Kimbrell and send me a DM to say hey. If any of the episodes have been super helpful for you, please consider leaving me a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. It helps me so incredibly much, and it allows the podcast to be seen by other people who need it. If you want to learn more from me, head to erinkimbrell.com. That's where you'll find all my free resources, read the podcast show notes, and learn more information about my online coaching and breathwork programs that help you create the life you want. If you want to keep the conversation going from today's episode, join us in our exclusive podcast Facebook community, Empowered and Free Help for High Functioning Anxiety. I'm here for you, and I'm always cheering you on. I'll see you next time. I'm Erin Kimbrell, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast.